All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you're in executive leadership, you know the unique, agonizing frustration of seeing a brilliant, abstract architectural design completely fail to translate into on-the-ground business value. Today, we're fixing that. We are conducting a high-level strategic briefing on TOGAF Phase E, Opportunities and Solutions. Think of this as your absolute blueprint for taking an ambitious enterprise architecture vision and forging it into a secure, de-risked roadmap that you can actually deliver, measure, and fund.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with moving from vision to value. Then we'll look at consolidating gaps and dependencies. After that, we'll weigh greenfield versus evolutionary strategies, tackle grouping strategic work packages, discuss milestones as transition architectures, and finally, wrap it all up with the final architecture roadmap.
Okay, Part 1, From Vision to Value, the Strategic Bridge.
We really need to reframe how we look at Phase E. It's not just some technical back-office checklist. Think of it as the literal value realization engine of your whole enterprise. If you look at the ADM cycle, Phase E sits right down there at the bottom. It's the ultimate pivot point. Up until now, we've been designing requirements, but right here, this is where we stop the theoretical design and actually pinpoint the delivery vehicles, the real-world projects and portfolios that'll get the job done.
And this really hits the nail on the head. Our absolute biggest mandate here is avoiding the classic Big Bang implementation disaster. Come on, we've all seen them. Those massive multi-year, multi-million-dollar initiatives that don't deliver a single ounce of value until the very last day, assuming they even survive that long. Phase E essentially forces our hand. It makes us secure continuous incremental returns on investment all along the transformation journey.
Moving on to Section 2, Consolidating Gaps and Dependencies. Now, to build this safe bridge to our future state, we've absolutely got to map the terrain first, right? We do this by throwing together a master dashboard for enterprise risk and opportunity, the Consolidated Gaps, Solutions, and Dependencies matrix. By merging gap analyses from business, information systems, and tech domains into one single view, it's like a giant puzzle coming together. Suddenly, you might realize that one specific building block can solve multiple gaps across totally different business lines. That is a massive win for your time and budget.
But here's the catch. Before any actual execution kicks off, we have to use this consolidated view to ruthlessly hunt down and eliminate interoperability conflicts. Think about it. When you start mixing reused building blocks, off-the-shelf software, and third-party services, it's kind of like trying to force an old Apple cable into a new Samsung phone. But on a massive corporate scale, you're going to get conflicts. So we solve these on paper right now, maybe by building a translator or tweaking the specs, to save ourselves from a world of budget overruns later.
All right, Section 3, Greenfield versus Evolutionary Strategies.
Next up, executive leadership has a pretty massive choice to make, and it's going to dictate the pace and the budget of the entire transformation. You basically have two distinct paths. On one hand, a completely new greenfield build gives you this beautiful, shiny, clean slate. But let's be real, it usually demands a huge upfront budget and causes major business disruption. Contrast that with an evolutionary approach. This is your safer, convergent strategy, relying on parallel running or phased rollouts. As leaders, you have to decide which route best mitigates risk while actually respecting your organization's capacity to absorb change.
Which brings us to Section 4, Grouping Strategic Work Packages.
So once your high-level strategy is locked in, you're going to stare down this massive, chaotic list of required activities. How do we handle that? Well, by mapping out exactly which systems rely on each other, we can organize all that sheer volume into manageable, highly efficient work packages. If activity A literally cannot happen without the output of activity B, boom, they're sequenced and grouped. This rigorous dependency mapping is the absolute bedrock for how your projects are going to be established and, fundamentally, how they get funded.
And I love this part because it brings brutal clarity. We aggressively categorize every single existing system to dictate exactly where your immediate cash flow should go or shouldn't go. Is a system mainstream and part of our future? Great. Is it contain, meaning we just slap it on cheap life support until it's replaced? Or is it a hard replace within our current horizon? Figuring this out guarantees you won't waste a single dime upgrading a system that's just going to end up in the trash 18 months from now.
Section 5, Milestones as Transition Architectures.
Okay, with our work packages defined, we've got to sequence them. And this introduces one of my favorite concepts, the transition architecture. Think of it like building a massive bridge, but you design it with fully functional interim toll-collecting checkpoints. It's brilliant because it lets you actually use and pull financial value from the partially built structure incrementally, all while the heavy construction just keeps going in the background. A major strategic rule of thumb here is to fiercely prioritize the easy wins. Seriously, unless system dependencies absolutely force your hand, push the toughest activities further down the line. Knock out the work packages that easily deliver new capabilities first. Why? Because organizational momentum is a very real currency. Showing early ROI builds trust, it silences the skeptics, and it significantly boosts your business readiness for the really tough stuff later on.
Finally, Section 6, the final architecture roadmap.
This is the big payoff. This is where we synthesize all those strategic decisions, all the categorized work packages, and the transition milestones into your ultimate executive deliverable, the architecture roadmap. It plots out this incredibly clear, time-bound progression. You can visually see how we move safely from our current baseline architecture right through our carefully planned transition architectures, literally cashing in on business value at each step, until we finally land at our target state.
And please, whatever you do, don't look at this roadmap as just another IT Gantt chart. It is so much more than that. It's a comprehensive business blueprint. Crucially, it's actually guided by your organization's unique corporate culture, using an implementation factor catalog. That ensures the plan truly fits the reality of your workforce on the ground and actively diffuses transformation risks well before they blow up.
So, by doing Phase ER right, we stop theorizing and we start delivering. We've taken an abstract vision and engineered a clear, completely de-risked path to bankable business value. Looking at this strategic blueprint, the only question I have left for you is, are you ready to stop just drawing architecture and actually start building value? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.